On this episode of the show, I have with me Mek Stittri. He is CTO at Stuut, and we're going to be talking about trust. Well, you got to also verify. So we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to have some stories and examples from Mek, and we're going to talk about, still having to get your hands dirty, even if you are delegating, and how you do that, because obviously you can only do that to a certain scale. And talk a little bit about, radical candor. I know sugarcoating sometimes an easier way when it comes to having tough conversations, but also those tough conversations sometimes help avoid performance issues down the road. A couple of things in there as well. But Mek, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right, before we start, what do you guys do at Stuut?
Well, Stuut is I would say, a new a new generation of finance operations built on agentic AI. So you imagine all the pain of the back office we're starting with collections first, and then later on cash app, credit risk, and all that. Overall, we want to replace the entire finance operations. That's our goal. But for now, we're applying real-world AI use case, shortening the amount of time to value for customers. For example, the DSO time for customers, time to get value, time to get cash. Compress that from weeks to just days, and using AI to really solve real-world pain points in the finance industry.
Love it. All right. This episode, we're going to be talking about trust but verify, and really some of the management aspects of making sure you are, coaching along the way, obviously delegating, but making sure that you're aware of what's happening and how do you get there. And I guess when we say trust but verify, these are all subjective terms, what trust means, what verify means. I guess from your perspective, when we say trust but verify, what are we talking about?
Well, from my view, I think trust and verify is you and your direct reports is aligned on what the end goal is and what success is. I think when I started becoming a manager, it's easy to delegate, and then you know them well, they've done their work well, and then you delegate. After a while, you just delegate, and then you don't verify. That's trust without verification, right? After a while, you would be disconnected from the actual end result that your team is producing. And as a strong leader, you take ownership. Like everyone who reports to you, their outcome is your responsibility. So to be an effective leader, you really need to get your hands dirty, get technical in the details. That's what I mean by verify. And this day and age, right? There's no excuse not to just go to Claude, go to ChatGPT, explain to me what this code does, right? It's so easy right now just to get a high level view on what the output your team or your direct report is doing.
Absolutely. That's a whole episode in and of itself of, we could probably spend a lot of time and maybe we touch on it, but I guess as you're kind of looking at, as a leader, one of the hardest things is, and as your team's growing, from an IC, trust but verify, you can do that with your own scope of work. I think that's something we all get very comfortable with. As a leader, all of a sudden, your role and your relationship to the work changes. You can't see every I and T. You got to trust your team. But I guess this verification process, I guess when you look at that and your team's growing, how have you seen some of the ways that you can ensure you're providing that trust, but you're verifying to the level that you need to as an engineering leader?
Yeah, I think what we should talk about here is growing people and having a strong track record between you and your teams, right? If areas that I trust, I would have a leader who will work together, who can take on this work, who has done the due diligence, and then at the end goal, I would just read his or her weekly reports, right? You're verifying to a certain degree, but because this person has a track record of ensuring success, going down and dirty, you can just keep what's the right term here? You can keep a line of sight, but you don't have to go down to the lower levels because that person can do the job for you. Though that doesn't excuse you from not reading the weekly reports, just to get to know what's going on in your org, because strong leaders are ready to answer any question from anyone, like either from your manager, your CEO, the board, or customers. There was this, I believe it's coined at Apple, where I believe Steve Jobs mandated that the leads know 3 levels deep. So if you're a director, you need to know what your senior engineer is doing, not just your senior manager. At any point in time, that person needs to know at least 3 layers deep and ready to reason about, right? to be able to answer the question, because at the speed of business, you need to be able to decide fast. And if you need to pause and do homework, that's a day, 2 days, and 3 days wasted. And it's so important now at this day and age. It's so important now at this day and age with AI, where speed matters. You really need to know the lay of the land.
I love that. Before we actually maybe dig into the AI piece real quick, because I'm curious. This comes up, and I do find it interesting, because where generative AI has taken one of the biggest strides is within engineering, and it makes sense to me, right? Engineers are writing tools. You can help solve the workflow of engineers probably easier, so that makes sense. When you look at conversations that are being had of, hey, every engineer really is going to become quote unquote a manager, right? Which is a very big ask, because not every engineer can maybe be a good manager. That's hard as is. When you look at your role right now, and I don't know to what extent you guys are using AI code assisting tools, but just overall the market itself, when you're thinking about this trust but verify, and you're thinking about code that maybe the team themselves do not now know line by line. They're not writing it line by line. They understand what's being written, but there's a level of now. So if you're a level removed from the team's a level removed from each individual line of code being written.
Right.
How does that play out?
This is a great question. So why don't I start with the top first on what my view is in the industry in the next 5 years. I think system design is going to be a key skill that everyone needs to be good at. I think in the future, software engineers will be managing a team of agents. Like now you already see Claude having their Claude MD. You can spin up a front-end agent, back-end agent, and these agents are working continuously 24/7 for one engineer. So in my view, 5 years from now, how I rate performance of a great engineer is how many agents can you manage, right? What's the output? Like, what's the outcome to the business? Can you ship features fast with high quality while managing a team of agents under you? So in that sense, I think, every engineer will have to take on some management skills at some point, right? Either manage people or manage agents. And great managers, they're clear on what the objective is. They can decompose the problems into manageable chunks. Keyword prompt engineering, right? You need to divide those tasks into manageable chunks, either for a human or for an agent, right? And then you have the business intuition and technical intuition to decide which pattern, which architecture is best for the business. I think that's like key principles into the future, where like that's how great engineers will operate.
It's interesting. I'm going to get back to the topic. I won't derail this anymore. This is the last one. For years, engineers have not tried to learn every single piece of syntax out there, right? People will Google it. People go to Stack Overflow. I mean, it's commonly understood. I guess sometimes I think about this notion of, trust but verify, and I think about engineers and how they typically work. They don't want to have to rewrite every line of code if they can help it. They're trying to actually solve the problems as simple as they can. I sometimes think that we're just misunderstanding what was really happening, and we're just taking out a chunk of what was already happening. We're just removing control, which as humans, we love control, but that loss of control brings out all these different concerns. But I would ask any engineer out there how many times they've not gone to an external source to find a piece of code, if they could help it, right? And maybe they can't in all situations, right? Like we can't assume you can in some complex situations, but it happens. And no one's been like, if you go to Stack Overflow, gosh darn it, you're going to be in trouble to search for an answer. Not to say that anyone, listening does that, but hey, we all know it's happened.
My take on that is, great and effective leaders, they measure the outcome,
yes,
right? And they like give flexibility in the process, like similar to like open book exams. Use whatever is at your disposal. I left GitLab when GitLab was 2 years post IPO, so the big team, right? Now at Stuut, it's a much smaller team, so I have to go relearn that velocity of a startup again. In the startup phase, right, speed is everything. So like whatever gets the job done, whatever gets the outcome to a success for the business and the customer. We can talk about customer success as well. I believe your job isn't done until your customer is happy, right? I think customer obsession is our key value at Stuut. So whatever it takes to get the job done, just go and do it, and then move as fast as you can. There was one thought that I received from one of our investors, is that speed is also considered a moat. Like think Nvidia today, like how far along they are in the chip design. So speed is actually a key defense skill. So velocity is still, one of the characteristics of a winning business.
I like that. And one thing to kind of go back on, I guess the original train of thinking on trust but verify, and leadership's not easy. But when you are looking at leadership and you're looking at this notion that I do want to trust, and you are obviously, everyone has delegated various parts of a project. That's just part and parcel of how things get done. And you're looking at the aspect of wanting to verify and wanting to provide enough room for people to grow, right? I think this is a very aspect of leadership. You want people to have enough room to grow. You don't want to micromanage, but also you want to ensure that things don't go sideways. And if they do, you're anticipating. All these dynamics for a leader is a very tricky thing. When you're looking to balance that from a leadership perspective, what is your recipe? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I think this segues nicely into the coaching topic we discussed earlier, right? The coaching to avoid a performance issue. And I believe that great coaching, so praise in public, criticize, strong feedback in private, set that person up for success. We can talk about the psychology aspect of it, optics of it in a different, it's another whole topic, whole podcast. But recognize in public, feedback in private, give feedback fast, because the sooner you address it, the sooner you adjust the trajectory of it towards the correct position is faster. The other one is around, I truly believe feedback is a blessing, and I try to tell that to my team as well. When you receive feedback from someone, it means you've been pointed to a blind spot that you haven't seen before. So don't take it as someone's trying to put you down, or don't feel bad about it. It is a blessing. So it's one piece of advice that you can take immediately to adjust. I think that's the mindset I try to bring my team towards on the same page. And when you have a team that is moving towards together, they're happy to receive feedback from one another. And they're always working to find the best outcome of two solutions. That is a great team. That's how I strive to build my team towards. Like if two people are debating, great, let's find the best idea between the two solutions, commit, and then move on. I'm sure you will debate again next week, right? So that's building that muscle to be one team, to receive feedback positively. I think that's the secret sauce of a really strong team.
When you look at, and obviously the coaching aspect of it, and if you're not proactive, if you're not looking forward, and obviously sometimes it's difficult to have hard conversations. I think that happens even in real life. Some people have a hard time having, a tough conversation. It's not that anything got solved. It just got kicked down the road. And eventually, at some point, it ends up coming due. And I feel like it just might grow from a smaller problem to a bigger problem. When you think about coaching and the challenge as humans as we have of not wanting to be confrontational, not wanting to bring up the hard conversation. I mean, that's hard for leaders. And I mean, you've been doing this for a while. When you think about that, what have you done, or how do you approach it so that you can have that tough conversation?
Yeah, I think there's a book on it, right? That Radical Candor. And then in the tech industry, there is this concept of the not so palatable sandwich. It's like compliment and feedback and compliment. I think that's the basic form of it. But strong leadership and people that have traversed the career path, they're more open to receive feedback as they grow up the ladder. So if you're a lead, if you are a director, I expect that you are open to feedback more than someone who just started in their career, right? So I do expect a certain of resiliency, of strength, if you have, if you have a certain time or you have been promoted to a certain degree. So I think that that's also one aspect I see coaching. Like then you can decide, okay, is it a really raw feedback that you can give now, and they just, okay, got it, I'm gonna go fix it now, right? Or you have to like pad the sandwich a bit thicker because they're just 2 years out of graduation. So I think that's a simple framework to go about it. There's no easy way around it. You just have to give that feedback, right? The more you sit on it, the more you probably lose sleep, the more it probably impacts your team because this person probably did not work well with the rest of the team, and it hurts the business. It hurts the company.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm not a golfer, but I do know, based on just physics, if you miss the golf ball by a few millimeters, if you look down the fairway, it obviously is going to be yards and yards off. When you look at what we've talked about like doing the work at a delegation to not IC, trust but verify. If you're avoiding these hard conversations, the sooner you catch the issue, obviously it might save a bigger problem down the road. Obviously, that makes sense. But going back to the balance of if you jump in too soon, you then are viewed as the leader, as the micromanager. Like, this is the double-edged sword because on one hand, if I can help stave off any problems up front, that helps. But if I do that too soon, the team's going to think that I am giving them no space to breathe and I am a micro. And then once you're dubbed the micromanager, gosh, that's a hard thing to shake. How do you handle that? Or what have you seen that works for you?
I think this is an art form. Like the more hours you spend, the more flying hours you spend in the industry, you hone that timing better than the others. Like if someone jumps in right away, they're probably still new in their management career. I have a daughter. She's 9 now. So I have some practice in like, do I wait or do I jump in? Like a good framework that I've used is, okay, let's have them try out for a while. Go explore, go try and fail. But if a certain time has passed and they're still stuck at it, then it's time for you to jump in. I think time is one variable. The other variable is the impact. If it's now at high risk impacting a business initiative, or it's now expanding scope within the org, if it's no longer impacting just one team, if it's no longer impacting just engineering, now it's like legal and finance are involved, that's another signal for you to jump in. So in my mind, there's this variable that like check, okay, jump in, or wait for some time, give them some time. And I've seen that the marination time you provide them, right? If there is more marination time, the feedback lands better, rather than like you go in right away and, hey, I know how to do this, trust me, right? They haven't gone through that process of mastering, learning, and now they're open to feedback.
I understand with you. I've got a daughter as well, and I sometimes joke with people. I go, I feel like, you improve your management skills when you have a child because you're being tested on a daily basis, and that hard conversation is, you're dealing with somebody who doesn't understand what that hard conversation looks like. You have to learn how to explain things differently, which I think is great. It's great turning. But when you look at yourself, I guess, if you have a great background. By the way, anyone is interested, they can go look at your bio. I mean, you've been in management for a pretty sizable time. When you think back to your IC days, were there managers you saw and you were like, hey, I'm going to emulate these people, or there's things that you kind of took note of? Because I always ask leaders, I go, we're not taught to be leaders. We're taught to go get a CS degree, for instance, learn the fundamentals, and then just go build it. But leadership isn't something, we're given some opportunities to learn on the job. But then what you do now is even further removed than from what you give in training. So I'm always kind of curious, as you were going through your IC days, were you just paying attention to good leaders? What were you looking to pick up? I mean, can you maybe share with us a little bit?
Yeah, great question, by the way. I'm now walking down memory lane. I would call out two leaders that came out during my IC days that that put a positive imprint on my career. I'll say it like that. The first one was my mentor at VMware. His name is Michael Yang. He helped turn me around in a time where I was trying to learn Python. I was new at it. And then I started off with just learning Python to delivering the project on my own and being recognized as an all-star contributor. And it was because he let me try and fail. Like he just witnessed me come in every morning and just banging my head against the screen. Why is it not working? And then just give me some subtle hints. But he let me be consistent and really find my discipline. And in that process, I understood the architecture better. So, Michael, if you're watching, thank you. The next person that leave a big imprint on my career and when I was in IC track was my leader at a company called Airware. His name is Vijay Gopinath, head of quality. And similar pattern where I was banging my head again. How come this framework is not working? I spent like 3 weeks trying to build something. It was built in JavaScript, fully async. I couldn't understand. And then at one point he tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, you've been struggling for a while. What's going on? And I told him, hey, I don't think this architecture is going to work because I've been trying it for 3 weeks. And he said, yes, I saw you. And my instinct is we should change the library. And he said, go ahead. Like, we trust you. Okay, change it, fix. Next 2 weeks, better architecture. So I think really similar process of, coming to the dojo, like practicing, coming every day, looking at a problem, spend time with it, and really hone your craft and understanding of the system. And these two people really gave me time, right? Gave me time, gave me agency. They didn't put me on a performance plan. They gave me time to go and experiment and find my way around the architecture.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's interesting because you pulled out two very. You have a great, fantastic career in technology, and you picked out two people, and it's interesting because as leaders sometimes. The day-to-day, as with if you have a child, you don't always see the trees of the forest. It is a bit of a struggle to see some of that. But you were able to look back and pick these two people out as people that really made an impact. And I guess you're going to have someday, maybe they'll be on a podcast as a CTO and they'll be asked who made an impression on me. And they'll be like, this guy Mek, he came in and he did X, Y, Z. So, that'll be cool. But, I love the conversation. I'm going to ask you one final question before I start wrapping up with you. But the last question maybe is, if you're talking to other leaders, right, is there something that based on the leadership you've picked up, and we're talking about this trust but verify, is there something that sometimes more junior, mid-level engineering leaders get wrong with this idea? Because I think that the concept's very easy to tell people trust but verify. The execution of this is, I think, not as easy. Is there something that'd be like, hey, listen, maybe you're hearing this, but the implementation doesn't roll out how you hear it?
Great question. I'm going to link it to one other concept that we talked about, which is curiosity. I believe that just that extra curiosity will make you become a better leader, will make you become a better executive, will make you become a better people manager. And the other flip side of the coin of trust and verify is actually curiosity. Like, how is my team doing? How is my senior engineer doing? Is he actually writing the code correctly? Is he actually running all those tests? How is he performing? Just that extra care and curiosity is the outcome, right? That's the process, but the outcome of it is trust and verify. And I really believe that, if you're passionate about your work, you're enjoying your craft, you're truly enjoying your craft, you're enjoying the journey of it, right? You're going to be curious. Like, how come that endpoint isn't serving a million requests per day? What's going on? Is it hitting the backend? Is there a bottleneck somewhere? Is it an N+1 problem? Is it the database? Like, what's going on, right? So just that curiosity in learning your craft better, learning your product better, learning your people better, will yield what we say today is trust and verify.
Fantastic, Mek. I appreciate your time. for coming on, sharing with everyone. If someone does want to reach out to you, we talked a lot about a lot of leadership aspects of
Yeah.
leadership. Is there a good way to reach out and ask you a follow-up question if somebody's looking for help?
Yeah, feel free to reach out on me on LinkedIn or my email at Stuut. So it's mek@stuut.co. And yeah, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Mek, I appreciate your time. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
Thank you, Mer. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right. That's the episode. We'll be back. Different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, Mek did a great job. He talked about trust but verify. I really think it's a complicated, high art oriented topic. I don't think there's as much science behind it. Yeah, there's reports out there and there's a lot of metrics out there, but how you implement this is not easy. And I think Mek did a great job of giving us some examples and stories and walked us through two leaders that left a great impression on him as well. Maybe I actually need to start asking every leader who's somebody that made a mark on them, because I loved hearing about that. So maybe we'll try to include that in future episodes. But please share this episode with somebody who also is interested in learning more about leadership, or maybe he's still in IC and wants to understand what they are getting themselves into. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show is going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.